do tonight. Tonight we're going to work on PowerPoint skills. All right, here it is. So just a idea of what we're going to do tonight from an agenda standpoint. So we had a lot of really good feedback at our last session regarding the Performance Arts Center. So thinking about what we could possibly create here at North, talking about needs over at Kimball at West, and then looking at a lot of different other options from other districts. So we're going to recap that feedback a little bit, make sure that all of those ideas were captured. We want to make sure that we're rolling those forward in our conversations. And any other discussion topics. Generally, there's ideas that come up after the last meeting that'd be like, I'd really like to add this to the conversation. Now's the time to be able to do that. We've got subject matter experts with us again on the Performing Arts Center to be able to help guide those conversations. So I want to be able to do some review of a lot of things that we talked about last time, again, just to make sure that we're refining that and adding anything else that we have from there. So we'll start. Most of the work tonight will be through that work, and then after that, we'll take a look at preliminary site exploration. So looking at options. Again, most of that focus is going to be at this site here, and then thinking about, is there a connection to the other things that we're talking about related to our facilities exploration in our FAC 2.0. We also have, so that's related to the Performing Arts Center. We also are circling back on the topic for our indoor multi-use facility. So in meetings 2 and 3, we did a lot of exploration around that. And so we've got some feedback on some preliminary budget numbers, estimates, if you will, on what some of that will look like. So we wanted to be able to circle back with the committee to be able to look at some of those numbers. Tonight, again, those are very preliminary, but just to get an idea of context of whether something costs $5 or $5 million, it's nice to be able to know if that makes a big difference. So, and then we'll wrap things up. So again, trying to keep things to the under the 6 o'clock hour as we're moving forward. So that's what tonight is about. All right. So with that, I will hand it over.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Davis. So as we have been, we added our meeting 4 notes. I think we, again, kind of looking through them, there are a couple things we'll touch on later in the meeting. There were some comments about how much or how many students utilize that. There was a couple comments about tours. So I don't. Is there an event in there tonight? If we did want to maybe get people in there, I know last time there was something going on in there, so I'm seeing heads shake no. So maybe again, if anyone has a burning desire to get into space, we can do that. And then again, some of the more specifics, kind of going through. So again, not to say again, like we've talked all along, I don't think we'll touch on every single one of these, but again, I think you'll see some of the comments picked up from last time. If there is anything, please speak up if you'd like us to address anything specifically. So wanted to go through precedents. Again, I'm going to kind of speed through this a little bit because I just we included kind of the same, some of the same information from last time. So again, looking at North. But then we did include a couple of the ones that a few people mentioned. So if it's okay, I'm going to kind of zoom through the initial ones. If anyone wants to come back to anything, we certainly can. But for tonight, we again highlighted a couple, I'll say more recent auditoriums to just kind of show and speak to what those look like. Again, I love this picture, so just that brings a smile to my face every time. So Sun Prairie East was a question last time. So again, this was a project that was completed right around 2010. We built a new high school for Sun Prairie at that time. And now we're actually in the process of building them a second high school. So this one was a seat capacity right around 1,000. So that's kind of in that general area where we more or less landed last time. don't know why the watermarking on here, but again, this is roughly, I believe, right around 800 seats on the lower level, and then there is a upper balcony level here as well with the remaining seats. An interesting fact about this one is there are not any bathrooms or anything on this upper level, so the people do have to go back down to the lower level in this case. In the case of what we're planning for tonight, the options that do have a balcony have a little bit of elbow room up on that upper level, as well as some bathrooms up there as well. And then this did have nice kind of back of house spaces with receiving and stagecraft, dressing rooms. This was a full fly, full orchestra pit arrangement here, and then you can see their band, choir, and orchestra. Again, this was a full new high school with the auditorium included at that time. Any questions about that one? Let's see if we have a few pictures here, so you can see the balcony up above there, and then the lower level seating. Again, this shows the pit cover is on in this position, so that it does have the option to come off. And then view looking at the stage in this particular case, more or less standing probably 3 or 4 rows deep in that back section of seating here. Questions about that project? Okay. Fond du Lac, so a little closer to home. Again, right around 1,050 seats. Again, roughly about 800 on the lower level, and then about, again, 200 on the upper level. This one, a little bit unique. It has kind of these little, on the upper level balcony, kind of upper box seating, if you will, option. That's a little, I would say, a little bit atypical for a high school, but interesting little feature here. Again, this worked out kind of well in terms of the placement. In terms of, we did create a separate lobby here for that performance center, but then it does have the ability to open up on the cafeteria commons again in this particular layout, so they can utilize the auditorium function on a day-to-day basis. I mean, more or less with school in function, they can kind of lock things off more or less within that, or again, allow it to spill out into the commons area. Again, back of house, seed shop, storage, dressing in the back area. Again, this does have a full pit and then the full fly loft as well. Here's a few pictures of the space. Again, the upper balcony, lower seating, and then this view actually is from the balcony looking down towards the stage. Yes?
On the boxes, do they do those because they could get people to write checks to be able to get access to them or something like that?
I'm not sure exactly why they did that. That may have been a theory. I don't know if any of you guys have a contact there or any of you know a story. I'm not aware of a specific thing. They may sell them as specifics or auction them off as part of education foundation things. That they would have the opportunity to do some of those types of things. What we've seen more often than not is utilizing this for another lighting position area as well. That can be utilized for that, but again, I would say it's pretty atypical for a kind of a high school configuration. And then Neenah High School. So Neenah is actually 800 seats. Again, this is all new. So in their case, they do have kind of a lobby that wraps around the back of the auditorium itself. Lots of toilets and support spaces kind of wrapping around the space. Again, our stagecraft, receiving area, dressing rooms, access to the stage via overhead doors. Again, this does have a full orchestra pit on the lower level, and then again that fly loft space as well. Again, our choir, band, and orchestra rooms. This one is a little bit unique. It does have what they're calling kind of a black box theater, so it's about 230 seats. So just a little smaller, intimate type venue for different types of performances.
So that's the new high school that they're building?
This is the new high school, yes.
What's the student population in that? Is it
I believe they're
somewhere
building
around
this
that?
somewhere between 1,600 and 1,800 students, somewhere in that range.
And they'll continue to use Pickard Auditorium at the existing
believe,
Neenah
yeah.
High School, correct? That's
I
about
believe so,
15,
yes.
1,600 seats, I believe.
Yeah.
Is Pickard going to stay?
I believe so, yes, yeah. That's gonna be converted to their middle school, but I believe they're gonna
Oh,
leave
but
here.
including the auditorium?
Yes. Yeah, I would say of note, probably in all three of these, again, Fond du Lac, I don't know the capacity of that building, but I believe it's larger than 1,000. Sun Prairie, this was built to be, I believe, a 2,000 student roughly school at the time. So again, at best, they could maybe get half their student population in at any one given time. I don't know if that's where anyone was going by kind of asking the size of any of the schools, but just a little bit of a frame of reference there. So again, some images, these are renderings, obviously. This one's probably, I don't even know if the walls are up yet for this part of the building, but still under construction for a while. Then there was a question about, I believe someone asked about the Sharon Lynn Wilson Center. Again, we did not know this one, so we were able to find some information on the website. This does have about a 600 seat on the lower level, or I'm sorry, 600 total, with about 200 of that on the balcony level. So it's a little bit smaller facility from what we could tell. Again, I just showed kind of a section view here, so it does have, I'd say, more of that kind of modified stage feel to it in terms of the height of the actually the height of this loft is right around 60, so it's a good size height. And then the pit area there.
Where is that located?
This
Brookfield.
Thank you. Nice lobby. So this is a little bit bigger kind of facility. This isn't kind of a lone area, but a very nice lobby space here. Again, kind of a rough concept of floor plan. So the lower level here and then the upper level here. Very nice, kind of intimate theater space. Nice height to it. And very, very beautiful lobby area. Not sure what the story is with this. That's not a fireplace, is it?
Yeah, I think it is, actually.
It's kind of an interesting sculptural element in the middle of it. But very nice, another very nice venue.
And they have classrooms in the back as well for a dance studio and other things as well. So.
Yeah, again, I think what I was able to kind of gather, it seemed like this lobby kind of linked a couple of different functions in addition to the auditorium itself.
Is it with one of the high schools?
No, it's actually a standalone. Some of the schools use it though. My son was at a middle school in Brookfield and he did his concerts there, so they do work with the school district.
So any questions about the precedents or anything else bouncing in your head in terms of other ones you've maybe thought of since the last time we met? Maybe you went to over spring break?
You might want to take a look at Xavier High School in Appleton, just because it's close.
Okay.
It's about 15 years old, but it's a very nice, smaller theater. It's not into the 1,000 range, but it's very nicely done.
Okay. So then as we went through, we did update some of the needs. Again, we added a little bit more for Kimball on this side, again noting, again, the expansion of the lobby. The fan shape is not ideal for sightlines and some of the acoustical challenge with that layout. Storage and restrooms are concerned, and then again, they kind of the back of house amenities tend to spill into the existing band, choir, and orchestra spaces, which can cause loss of instruments or damage to the various equipment. Again, we kind of, I appreciate the comments from the group last time too of, these are definitely needs, but kind of first and foremost, I think is addressing the facility here. So again, we don't want to lose sight of these, but I think, in terms of prioritization, kind of what we heard last time was, let's get this one right, and then maybe worry about Alberta Kimball a little bit down the road, or maybe address it when we maybe look for a final solution for West in the future. Again, so that needs for this facility, again, this should be some of the familiar from last time we did update our seat count. Again, we were going to maybe look to build something a little bit bigger than we had shown last time. And then again, making sure we have kind of an equal facility to Alberta Kimball in terms of having a fly loft and an orchestra pit. Participation, so I don't know, Dave or, I don't know if anyone from the district wanted to kind of talk to this one, the participation.
I don't know where that information came from.
Yeah, that's me.
Okay.
Hi. So some of this information came directly from our school report cards. So the state of Wisconsin and the school accountability report cards starting this school year asked us to report out on fine arts and work-based learning and those types of things. So directly on our Office Area School District report card, when you look at the high school level, 26 to 20% of the student body take courses in fine arts. So 1 in 4 students are actively taking courses in fine arts. So think about music, the drama, theater, those types of things. So when we're asking who, how many kids would be impacted, that's from the 2 high schools. If you look at the current school year, 21-22, enrolled in art, music, and drama classes, there's 586 enrollments at North, and there are 839 enrollments at West. Remember, West is bigger, to keep that in mind. And with our high school musicals, when we pulled the data as far as who's involved in like the activities and marked as an activity, and we looked at a 3-year average, there's anywhere from 60 to 75 students are involved in the high school musicals at each school per high school each year. So I hope I got that right. That's what came out of.
Are those COVID numbers, Julie?
This is the last 3 year, this is the trend, this is like trend. So that's why I didn't do, it depends on the, and Bridget, you can answer this more, but it depends on the musical or the selection that's chosen about how many students are involved or that kind of thing. So, but the enrollments are this year's school numbers. So, yeah.
For this year's numbers, I would estimate that's about 20% lower than pre-COVID.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's what the numbers are this year.
Well, Julie, am I correct that the last time we looked at the state report card, we actually were pretty high in the fine arts compared to like the state in like students' involvement?
Yeah, we're above the state average in fine arts involvement, yes. You are correct.
Thank you. And again, I think there are a lot of nice comments. Again, if you look from the feedback last time of, again, we're talking about investing a lot of money in our athletes. Let's not lose sight of this sector of our population as well, because this makes up a lot of students as well, has a huge impact on them. So again, appreciate those comments, and hopefully this kind of backs that sentiment as well. So again, kind of in terms of defining goals, again, a little bit of some items from here. Again, seating, I think we settled last time right around 1,000. So the options we seated tonight are revised to reflect that. Again, we talked about full fly loft and orchestra pit for a high level production type of space. We talked about art gallery. We talked about potential dining being really important important, meaning the lobby space, again, adequately supports the intent of what the facility is meant to be. And maybe learning some lessons of, not quite even having a large enough lobby space, or an odd-shaped lobby space, I should say, at Kimball. And then again, dressing and storage and stagecraft.
Can you actually go back a slide? Julie, I forgot there was a data piece that you gave me. I actually just put it in the presentation. If you wanted to go back to that. Are you live?
We did this how many, before spring break?
Yeah. Slide 37.
Oh, this is the actual piece off of the school report card that, Jackie, that you had mentioned. So if you look at where we are with music and art and design and theater, you can see where we are compared to the state with the percent of participation. So.
Sorry about that, Julie.
Yep. And this is 19-20 numbers, and what we had on the previous slide was current enrollment numbers.
So your handout, Nate snuck that one in there.
I snuck that one out.
Your handout doesn't have that one, so, I don't know, if we've been posting these to the website then, Dave?
Yes.
So, okay, the one version we post will have that updated. So Nate's gonna run through the options.
All right, so last time we talked about a couple of different options about what to do with the current space. Do we add on completely? We have 3 different options to show you tonight. All 3 options will be on this side of the building. So here's the current auditorium space, and so just overall floor plan opposite a little bit of the athletic side of the building. The floor plan on the left will be the same on the next slide. So for option number 1, this would be a 1,050 seat PAC. So this does include a balcony with roughly 800 seats on the first level, with roughly 250 seats on the balcony. This space does not touch the current auditorium. You could see facing the south that there would be a nice lobby area entrance close to the existing building. And then this lobby granted by 2 stairs, an elevator, some large toilet rooms over here, all accessed off of this main lobby. Talking through the dining perspective or art gallery events, things like that, all of that could hypothetically be kind of focused in that main lobby area. Off the auditorium itself, on the lower level, there would be a ticket booth, hypothetically, and a office. And then as you kind of circle around to the back side of things, there would be a potential door here for privacy. In this floor plan, there are 2 dressing rooms, 1 green room. So dressing with individual toilet rooms, changing rooms in there. A green room with a couple of additional toilet rooms. And then you would actually have a stair and an elevator here. So in this option, there are 2 elevators and a stair also to get down into the orchestra pit. So this stair would take you down, so this is a subgrade pit level, would take you down into this orchestra pit, and then having a little bit of storage below grade, just functionally how that makes sense from a massing perspective. On the back side of this corridor as well, past the elevator, there would be a storage room, potential piano garage, is what we call them sometimes, a piano storage room of sorts, and then a large scene shop that would have overhead garage doors allowing traffic to come through the scene shop, deliver in scene shop, but also to come through and back up directly to the stage. In this layout, this would allow multiple access points to the stage itself. So you can access directly from the corridor, directly through green room, and then to get to the other side of the stage, you could also walk through this back corridor to a door in this location. So obviously we want access from both sides of the stage. There's a few different coordination pieces and results to getting things to and from the stage.
Can you access the stage from the seating area?
Yes, good question. So from the seating area, there would be 2 steps. So this would dip down as you approach the stage, and there would be stairs here and here. And typically what we see is the floor, it's a little hard to say in this drawing, but the floor starts to dip on that inner bowl, and this level wraps all the way around. So from here to here, that's flat and can be accessed this way. But then there's stairs here to here from when you're in that lower bowl up to the step, up to the stair. So I touched on the pit level. On the second floor, a smaller lobby, but still a lobby in that same footprint. You can kind of imagine it almost hanging over, kind of cantilevering over the lobby below. Smaller, but still yet public toilet rooms for this upper balcony. A single-use restroom, and then mechanical space to support the hypothetical addition here. 2 light shelves are being proposed on either side of the PAC. And then this wall here would be more or less your front stage wall. And then you can kind of see in this location where a loading bridge might be, indicating that high fly.
Nathan, in this case, the light shelf would just be production only, not seated.
Yes, correct. The light shelf would be just production only. Good point. And then there is a dashed line here kind of indicating a catwalk so that, that would be accessible via the 2 light shelves to get up into that area.
Whichever plan we finally decide, the lighting and the audio persons really need to be out in the house on the first floor, whether it's near the back wall or out in the, center below. Because you can't put them in a booth and then expect the audio guy to personally hear what's going on.
We actually have a sound port shown kind of in the
I
middle.
apologize. I skipped over that. Yeah, there is this kind of U-shaped piece here, which would be the sound porch.
Thank you.
And then there's a control room up here, more or less from a lighting perspective, up at the balcony height. Sorry, I skipped over that. Good point.
So your sound porch is not under the balcony, right?
That's correct. It is not.
That's great.
Yes, that's really,
Thank you. As long as I got your attention, when you're talking about using the lobby for some other kinds of functions like dinners or pre-show meals or something like that, I'd like to see how the doors work, just for fire regulations, because where you're going to be able to put tables is going to be pretty much regulated by whether the doors line up or not. And I'm sure you guys know all about that, but.
Yeah, so a little bit of some of the code pieces here, right? But this is our main exit, and I'm not showing all the doors that would be required, especially around this lobby area. There would be plenty of doors to get exit out. You're seeing some of the doors out of the auditorium itself. But for your main egress out of the building, as well as egress coming this way, this kind of, if you could imagine this T shape, there would be no tables up there. We'd have to most likely occupy, no more than 8 feet closer to that wall. So if you could imagine, this is I think this is a 32 to 34 foot lobby, and so you still have 25 plus feet, plus that entire length for events and things like that.
That's great, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions on this one?
I guess for you guys, does this have enough storage at North, or does North already have enough storage?
there's never enough storage.
So I don't see any storage spaces. And I know that was one we had talked about.
Yep, so, to a degree, you can parse up this mechanical space. You may not need this entire mechanical space to support that, so this could be partially storage. There is storage here, and then, the scene shop is very functional scene shop, but regardless, sometimes we'll put a mezzanine in there to support storage inside of a scene shop of sorts. But if storage is needed, we can continue to look at that and would go down that route if this is the path we go down. But I think there are some areas nestled in here that, yes, if you ask any teacher, they will ask for more and more storage, right? So it's just finding that right line.
Just once I wound around in the back of West, to where they have all the band uniforms. That room, it seemed to me huge, but it was full. So I'm not sure where North has that space, but I don't see it recreated here either.
Yeah, and so, one thing we haven't touched on is, what do we do with this space here in the blue? And that could be part of the solution, as a storage solution, as that is somewhat adjacent. There could be a solution where that existing auditorium stays as is. That's part of what we're looking to you guys for advice, and when we get to the financial piece, maybe you'll have some implications to that. But yes, to your point, we'll have to look at storage.
And are you asking if we're adding more storage to even just support band and orchestra as it exists now? Is that part of your question, or?
Well, I guess if you're gonna do this at North, you might as well make sure they have the storage they need.
Sure.
Because you would hate to do all of this and then not have done anything about
Yep.
storage.
When you're looking at the storage, and it's, not just props and scenery and things, for instance, at Kimball, I use about, a third of my storage to keep the band shell and the choir risers. They take up an enormous amount of space.
Right. And typically, costume storage, things like that, takes up a large amount of space as well, so. All good points. Moving on to option number 2, and we can come back to any of these at any point in time, but let's get through all of these options here. This is a 800-seat auditorium, so no balcony. For the most part, it's the exact same floor plan that we just looked at, just without the balcony. We just wanted to look at this from a cost perspective to see, as we transition potentially from balcony to a not, what the difference is. A couple of the big differences are, the additional stairs, one additional elevator, additional bathrooms on the second floor, obviously additional square footage, additional seats, things like that. So overall, the floor plan, that has not changed. Toilet rooms, dressing, green room, stage, auditorium, scene shop. But I think, the big piece here, just the added cost of the upper level. So I just wanted to identify that for the group today. Option number 3 would be kind of looking at that other piece that we talked about a few weeks ago, where we would actually remove a portion of the structure that is the current auditorium and slap this piece into that space. So the other two, when we get to the budget numbers, we'll have numbers associated to this green volume as renovation. But this will take it all into account, where we can more or less take that structure away and then push the auditorium and features into that space. So a little bit different configuration here. Still keeping a nice entry here close to the existing building. At that point, you would slot into the lobby, so not as convenient, but still could work out. You would then come into this corridor, into this grander lobby with 2 large toilet rooms here. You could imagine that this white space, kind of unallocated, could become storage or an office or something, a couple of small offices in there. But again, the 800-seat auditorium with an office and ticket booth. As we utilize this, so that's really all that's accessed off the lobby, right? Is just this main entry, the lobby, and then the 2 toilet rooms with the auditorium below. Utilizing this other existing corridor, we would then use that to wrap around to the backside of this auditorium. So in this location, we would have a corridor for exit purposes, access up to the mechanical room to support this space, a couple of dressing rooms, and then that same access point for scene shop. So still overhead garage doors to get into the stage, but then continued corridor circulation to get you back to a green room with a couple of toilet rooms, a piano garage, storage room, data closet, elevator space, and then this would be a hypothetical location for the pit stair and elevator to get you here. So again, this is kind of below grade under here, and so you would go down these stairs into the orchestra pit with storage and orchestra pit below. So we just wanted to study this to see how that would potentially fit into the existing space, and then the dollar figures associated with that as well.
What is the capacity of this?
800 seats. So of the 3 options, option 1 would be the 1,050 seats that has the upper balcony, and the other 2 would have roughly an 800 seat occupancy. Any questions on? Yeah.
On the third option, is that able to be locked down from the so general public can't mix into the building? If there happened to be something going on while school is going on, or, locked down that way?
Yeah, great question. So if this was an event during the school day, there are doors here and here that could keep this separated from the school. But if you had an event going on in here and you had someone trying to enter the school from this location, they would hypothetically be traveling through the event of sorts to get, past. So there would have to be some sort of logistical piece worked out saying no entrances through door X. Today everything needs to go in door 1 or door 7. I don't have the door numbers memorized here, but it would have to be a logistical piece. So that could create a headache, to your point. Does that make sense, though? And then from a weekend perspective as well, these doors could be closed and they're only accessing this area.
How deep is the pit in terms of like front wall, back wall?
Good question. So that is roughly about 18 to 20 feet from the back wall to the front curb. When you're in there, it does feel pretty tight, but we can get 2 comfortable rows of people in there with the conductor standing in front.
Okay.
Other questions?
I just wanted to comment on the questions about storage at North. We currently rent a storage unit for North and West choirs and North and West drama. We were just told in the last week that we can't rent it anymore, but we've used it as like a modified scene shop, especially for our North shows, since we don't practice in our performance space. Like right now we have like platforms and sets and like big prop pieces there, and like our other costume and everything prop storage here at North is just like packed to the gills. So the comment about needing more storage is really fair, because we try to be frugal and not have to buy things again and again for each show. So we're reusing and sharing was why we did that in the first place. So having as much storage as possible is a legitimate concern for us.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Do you know about how big that space is?
I don't. I'm not good with that kind of a thing. I would say it's probably like this right now.
Okay. Okay, big. Okay.
Like in here, approximately, we've got like rows of flats and couches and then like bins, shelves with bins on it and stuff. So.
That's the rental space.
And
right?
it's not heated, so we're building it in the winter.
Good to know. Thank you. Any other questions or comments about options 1 through 3? Okay. So for a cost estimate, we'll start off with option 1. This is 1,050 seats and a balcony. We are projecting out to 2027. The addition itself, just for the auditorium PAC portion of it, could range anywhere from $23 to $24.1 million. If you count in the addition of the current auditorium, that would be an additional $3.2 to $3.4 million, with total project cost, if you did all of it, at that $26.2 to $27.6.
Do these figures include stuff in the building, or is this just the building? For instance, lighting equipment, sound equipment?
This includes lighting equipment, an orchestra shell. This includes everything to get and it includes audio and things like that. It includes everything to get the PAC functional day 1, including stage curtains and things like that, rigging, all of that sort of thing. And does include things like furniture to fill up, say, a lobby and adjacent dressing rooms and things like that. Good question.
Thank you. And what year did you say these numbers are based?
2027. So obviously, if we can talk about timing in just a hot minute here, but if we're able to do things sooner, then things can come down a bit. And the market, as we talked about with the previous example, has a lot to do with things, right? If things could jump around like we've seen a lot in the past 2 or 3 years. Option number 2, this is 800 seats, all addition. So this is like option 1, just without the balcony. This does come in a bit lower. So just the addition itself is 18.5 to 19.4 million. That same renovation is the same number at 3.2 to 3.4. So a total project cost of 21.8 to 22.9. So just jumping back real quickly, 26 to 27, you're looking at roughly 5 million for that additional 250 seats. Doesn't mean it's not worth it, right? And there's always a cost, analysis that we'll have to do associated to that. But that is kind of the difference between the 1050 seats and the 800. Option number 3 is the lowest price point out of all of them. So this does include removing a portion of the current North High School and doing 800 seats. If it's a little bit different laid out here. So this second line item is the addition. This third line item is the renovation. Total project cost ranging from 20.7 to 21.7. Again, 800 seats. We could look at doing this sort of thing with a 1050 seat arrangement, but you kind of already can get where that figure goes when you look at the difference between option 1 and option 2.
Do you have a idea right offhand about the size of the stage, the depth and width?
Yeah, it's 30 feet deep by 100 feet wide.
35.
Sorry, 35 feet deep.
Okay, but what's the proscenium arch width?
The opening?
Yeah.
50 feet.
Okay, thank you. So basically the same size as Kimball.
Yes.
And the fly loft is how high?
That's the traditional, is that 65? 65 feet in all 3 options.
30 feet higher than we got.
Yes.
It's high enough.
Any other questions on the cost estimates?
Other than holy cow.
Yes. Okay, we did want to circle back when we met on the indoor multi-purpose. Sure.
So I guess, how do we know how many seats we need? And is there a use for the current theater, or whatever you want to call it, study hall? That as it currently is, does it need renovation? Do you need the, you know what I mean? Like how, where do we, well, I don't know. I mean, is there a use for it at North without if there's a theater built?
Right.
Is there not a use for it and you go ahead and you cut into the building?
I mean,
How do we know?
the seat count is kind of a little bit separate from, you know, what to do with the existing space, and that, I mean, that's gonna have, I think we heard the recommendation is that it probably needs to be more than 800, but seeing these numbers can sometimes bring us back to reality a touch. Not that that's not reality, because it's a need, right? But can be humbling of sorts. Regarding the existing space, I guess I'd look to, you know, Jackie, OASD, other team members to, you know, do you see yourself using that existing auditorium if a new one was built? And that was kind of, you know, empty?
Isn't it mostly used for classes and study halls during the day at the present?
Currently.
And where would those go then?
Well, we'd have to use our common door. The only time we use it really during the day is when our music performances used it during COVID to spread out really. And then our communities, classroom uses it for presentations and speakers. And then the third option is when we have lunch going on, we have to use it because we don't have a space in the common to get the regular study hall. So it'd have to come up here probably to the media center if we were to move study hall.
So it isn't normally used like as a classroom or anything?
Correct.
Thank you.
So, I mean, this 3.2 to 3.4 and option 1 and option 2, calling out the renovation of that area, does include, you know, a lot of plumbing, mechanical, electrical services. So depending on, you know, if you were to do it all, if you were to just make that a giant storage room, I mean, we can make that storage room for less than $3.2 million, right? But I don't see, you know, advocating the entire area just for storage. So it's a little hard to, you know, when we're budgeting out, you know, is it $2.1 million or is it 3.4? But so, you know, that area could be used for multiple things.
I guess part of my question is does it just stay as it is? You don't have to do a major renovation to it.
Correct.
You're using it for occasional study hall, occasional speakers. What needs to be renovated then?
Right.
If you're building a performance arts center. And it's probably little in the whole scheme of things, but.
But then to take your question a little bit further, what would we want to do with that space? You know, is there something else that we could improve it for specifically?
Yeah.
Or divide it into part for storage and part for some new use.
I had talked to some of the other staff about, what that could look like, and I don't know, this would probably be something Jackie would wanna do too, to figure out where there are major needs in the building as far as renovating or not. And we had talked about, like, could it be like a dance studio or something for the dance team, like some sort of, like, kind of flex space that could then also be used as something else, so that's an option, but I definitely think it's worth looking at. If you're building a brand new performing arts center, I don't know why you would want just a lecture room sitting there. Like, to me, it would be a waste of space and wouldn't be used. Like, if you have a speaker room, you'd use the nice facility. And honestly, like, keeping it, like, if you go down there and look at the orange seats that are falling apart in it, like, you wouldn't want to keep that. And at some point, those will be unusable. So it would be an unusable wasted space if nothing is done to it.
Is that not part of the renovation cost?
That would be, the part of this 3.2 to 3.4 would be to do something with that square footage. I mean, and just to throw something out there, I mean, I don't know if you guys have considered the idea of a black box. I mean, that could be, that dance studio piece, right? That black box is what they've termed it up at Neenah, that Clint showed earlier. It could be used from a variety of small theatrical performances, but could also be used for a variety of, whether it's...
If it were just a basically empty space with some amenities, I mean, it could be used for dance rehearsal, dance troupe rehearsal, dance corps rehearsals. Could be used as a rehearsal area for the drama and the music department. Could be used as a black box theater with a little bit of different setup in it. So that might be something really interesting to look at.
Just one idea.
I'd like to talk about seating capacity, because you had a question about that. Earlier, we saw the statistics of students averaging in a musical production and in music, theater, and art. Keep in mind that this north side facility would be for the north side. All of the north side elementaries would use it for their programs. The new Val Phillips Middle School band, choir, and orchestra will have their concerts here because there's not a good place at the new middle school to do that. So it's not just a north facility, it's a north side facility. Also an all Oshkosh facility. So you gotta keep in mind that it's not just north students and community will be using it. So many people will use it in our school district beyond just north music, drama, theater, art.
Good point.
Well, I think that's when the seating capacity really matters. I mean, for north, 800 is probably fine, but the problem is when you have the elementary concerts and different things like that, especially when we're having our schools coming together for the bigger schools, you're gonna want larger capacity.
Well, is it fair to say that's gonna, as the district goes down the consolidation plan, that's gonna be a bigger bulge of people? Because they're gonna be bigger sections in those buildings, so there's gonna be more students there, so unless you're breaking them into smaller grades that are performing, it's gonna be a bigger push, right?
Somewhat, like at Carl Church, there's a 2 concert and then a 5 concert, and one's kind of like holiday and one's in spring. And so that's just what we've done at some of the buildings.
Yeah, there are several of the schools that are too big to even have one concert at Kimball.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And I think once we have the new middle school on the Webster, elementary school on the Webster site, that will still have to be split in a 1,000-seat auditorium into a K2 and a 3-5. Even with 1,000 seats.
When they split it, they fill, right?
Yeah.
How big is Traeger?
500.
500. And so, what's the projection for the north side new elementary?
600.
600, so just think about that, like, that building is larger than our largest elementary school right now. Traeger barely fits in the 1,400 seat. When you split it.
Any other comments, questions?
So we need as much seating as we do at Alberta.
Close. Yeah, close to
Yes.
it.
Close.
Well, then it'd be a shame to build it just for that capacity and then in 10 years go, oops.
Or right away.
Or soon.
Yeah, I worry about us undershooting on capacity and then realizing once it's built, well, we should have done better. Let's do better from the start.
And part of the exercise too is just seeing, again, I don't know, 800 is arbitrary or not, but just seeing what that is and then seeing the cost to go up. So that was kind of a little bit part of our rationale exercise to just see what premium, I guess, you're paying more or less for the balcony.
Really, in the whole scheme of things, at 20 million to go another 5. What's the deal? I mean, just, who would have thought it would be that much? Okay.
So we can all, go ahead. Do we, given how many of these you guys have been involved in, you know, Julie pulled some of the data on how much, what percentage of students are in it now. When you have a new facility, I assume the participation goes up.
Right.
I mean, is that fair to say? So, I mean, you know, I would think district-wide or inside the building, you know, people that have a affinity for the arts, over time, some of that population is going to shift over here. So, I mean, this is probably going to put more stress there.
Yeah, I mean, across the
than
board.
just looking at the existing numbers today.
Right. No, I agree. I mean, across the board, right, when you invest into your community, invest into these facilities, the students that are, or parents that are choosing to put their kids into different districts now want to stay here, right, which helps the numbers, hopefully, and then, like you said, even just as diving as far into the curriculum side of things, like if the arts, you know, if we're on the fence on the arts, now they're probably in, right?
And I would challenge you also to look beyond just like who's enrolled in the classes, because you're performing for other people too. So even if the student's not in the class, they're getting to attend performances. The whole school benefits, the whole, you know, the whole community benefits from it too. So.
All right. So back to the indoor multi-purpose facility, just for a hot minute here. There was a question regarding what does it look like to break the turf facility away from the field house / rec department facility. And you could really lop the rec department into one or the other. For this exercise, we did put it with the field house portion of it. So for those that were interested in that breakout, still looking at that total project cost of 58 to 61. But you know, the turf facility being 25 to 26, and the field house with rec department being 33 to 35. So we just wanted to circle back on that. You know, just like we'll do in 2 meetings from now. If there were questions that we couldn't answer tonight regarding the cost estimates for the PAC, we'll bring those back, as we just want to continue to keep everybody in the loop. Any questions on that breakout?
I did have a question back about the balcony.
Yeah.
Is the balcony's capacity fixed in some way, or is that just a number that you chose as an example?
Yeah, so based off of our conversation a couple of weeks ago, I think and maybe this is a little bit of reading of the room, was that we didn't feel like we had to get to quite to Alberta Kimball. We felt like we needed to be more than 800, and the number seemed to surface somewhere around the 1,000 mark. So this was designed at that 1,000 mark, and to a degree is pretty fixed at that point. Again, kind of going back to our meeting a few weeks ago, you know, we really can't or don't want to per se push this back wall of the auditorium any further, as you start to lose the facial expressions of performance on the stage. So any additional seats that you do put up are really up on that balcony. So to their point of not putting, for instance, the sound porch underneath the balcony, there is a fine line there of how we need to do that. And incline can be achieved in different ways as well. But for those that went to the Bradley Center, nobody wanted to sit up on the top of the Bradley Center because you felt like you were looking down like that. So there's a fine line to incline versus how many seats we can put on the balcony and things like that. But to answer your point more directly, this is a pretty fixed number as far as this layout goes.
But if the right number is 1,200 or the right number is 1,400 or whatever, I think feedback from the group, if we feel, comfortable with 1,000, if the expert, if our group feels comfortable with that number, I think we should have that discussion and sort of agree to disagree or whatever the case may be, but I think that'd be a good thing to come out of tonight with a general goal that we all feel pretty comfortable with.
So is 1,000 enough? Is 1,000 enough?
Well, I mean, if Alberta Kimball's what, 1,400? Do we need, you're saying we need the same size, right?
I mean, the one way to look at it, not trying to spin it one way or the other, right, is you need that 1,400 capacity for, how many times a year, right? So is there an opportunity to share? And I know you guys are already sharing, right? This should take the burden off significantly. But if you are finding that this is not putting up for the 2 events on the north side or the 4 events on the north side, is there a way to shift those 4 over to Alberta Kimball, which can handle it? And then maybe there's some sharing that can happen the other way, where, hey, I only anticipate 800 occupants, but we already booked a north side event at Alberta Kimball. Can you guys come over and use the north side piece?
There certainly shouldn't be any reason why large audience shows in the district couldn't use the Kimball, or the smaller ones use the north, just because they would be a better fit.
Because the danger in creating 2 the same size is that you have an event that hosts 500 people, and then and that's right around the number, and then it looks like you built too much. You spend too much taxpayer dollars because it's not being used at its full capacity as often as you hoped it would.
There are community events that use Kimball right now that would be a much better fit in a 1,000 or an 800 seat theater.
And that was the approach that, again, Sun Prairie and Neenah specifically took with theirs, because Sun Prairie, we showed their example, their new high school, they targeted about 800 seats for their new one, so they kind of see the, again, old auditorium as the bigger one, the new one as the smaller one. I think Neenah is the other example. Again, they're keeping, at the old high school, they'll keep that one, that'll be kind of their big auditorium. The one at the high school is that, again, that 800 size. So I think there's some advantages to, and again, not trying to convince, again, one way or the other, but that was some of the rationale from a couple of those other communities, that they didn't think they needed 2 very large ones. They thought, again, one large one and a, little bit smaller one would suffice. But
Tom, roughly how many events a year fill the Kimball?
Not as many as they used to.
Right.
Seriously, our biggest events, I do an enormous audience in dance reviews in June, which is an outside group. They have to do 2 shows to get through their audience in. The elementary concerts in the big schools, so maybe 5 or 6 of them have to, I don't even know if it's that many, maybe 5 that have to split their concerts. So it isn't like Kimball is full for every show. But then when it's full, it's full.
And again, I taught there for 18 years, and if you have an audience of 800 in Kimball, it doesn't look very big. Because then there are 600 empty seats.
The shows like the drama club shows, some of our concerts. I had, just a couple of weekends ago, we had the Youth Symphony in. Filled the stage with wonderful sounding Youth Symphony students, and I had like 200 people in the audience. They didn't even manage to get 1 person per player in the audience. It was very disappointing. But yes, there are a lot of times when Kimball is overkill.
So, not to pinpoint you, but that 1,050 is 800. What seems to be the number? What would be your recommendation?
I would say that 1,000 should be the smallest number, but I think that would be a nice compromise.
That space seems to disappear because we are, of course, going to allow and be able to have more handicap wheelchair access, et cetera, and that space just disappears. So,
Yeah, interesting question. How many, are there wheelchair spaces programmed in? Do you know
Yes.
how many?
Not off the top of my head, I can find that
Oh,
out for you, but
just
yeah,
curious,
there,
yeah.
it's programmed.
The right number.
The required number.
The required number.
That's right.
Yeah, I was thinking 1,000 is, in my opinion, the way to go. And what's nice about having 200 in a balcony, if you're only expecting 600 people, you close the balcony and you just have main floor seating. But for those bigger events, you have that balcony as an option. So it kind of makes the space a little more flexible. And I think, in my opinion, 800 is too small, but 1,000 is about right.
I guess I heard the word compromise, though. I mean, again, we're not trying to steer, it feels weird, we have the most to benefit by building a bigger building. So not trying to steer in one direction, but I mean, is 1,000 a compromise, or is that the right number? Because again, I guess as we're thinking about the art students, I don't want to feel or have the perception that we're compromising either. I think the goal is that we're making a good decision here, best use of both facilities and total facilities for the district.
I think Dan meant though that the 800 with a balcony was a nice compromise in not building an 800-seat auditorium, but having the capacity to use an 800-seat auditorium for smaller productions and still have the ability to use the 200 seats in the balcony for larger shows.
So option 1 is 1,050.
That's correct.
Does it make sense with the spring concerts coming up to do head counts?
Oh, sure, we could do that.
Just, to help with the data, current data, it's in like 3 weeks or whenever the concerts
Yeah,
are coming.
they're
I mean,
starting
it
right up, yeah.
would help us, know that with certainty, and then it's not a thumb in the air.
why don't you do yours at this, Alberta Kimball or at WE?
Put that Alberta Kimball this spring. It hasn't been because I haven't been able to find a date.
Okay.
Oh, but how many people were at the All-City Orchestra thing here a few weeks ago?
That was in the field house.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
But would it be moved to this, too big?
We couldn't do it in the auditorium because there wouldn't be enough space for the students to sit.
Right, the All-City Orchestra, and then back in December, the All-City Bandorama used the North Field House, so all students could be set up on the floor at one time. And I don't know what the capacity was for orchestra, but I know for band, the place was full.
Yeah, it was, we had about 1,700 to 1,800 spectators
Yeah.
in the band room.
And it was like 800 students.
That's awesome. Well
So
done.
there really isn't a solution for that.
No, a field house is the right place for that type of event.
Yeah, that was just a lot of work.
Yeah.
But the thing is, having another facility will allow flexibility, and we just will, whatever it looks like, whether it's 800 or 1,000, like, we will reimagine what the North Side performances look like, truly. I mean, with new schools, new, middle school and elementary, like, all of that will just change, and we'll all have to adapt and be flexible. So that's really exciting, like, very, very hopeful that any of these would come to fruition. Like, that would be life-changing for a lot of students.
Sure, I had one more question.
Yes. We will have discussion time, but keep going.
What's
yeah.
the effect on parking space?
Yes, so we will get to that. Are you okay
Yep.
waiting for that? Okay. So, let's go ahead here. I think we were just gonna touch on timing real quick. Basically, for those that didn't touch on the timing piece when we talked about the indoor practice facility, just a recap here.
Yeah, we just wanted to remind people of the potential timing for these. Obviously, phase one, just to remind folks, is we're in the middle of that now with the construction of Bell Phillips Middle School, the new elementary school, which will open a year later in fall '24. Phase 2 is potentially could be a referendum in 2026. That would be focused on South Park Middle School and elementary school consolidation and remodeling on the west side. And then obviously phase 3 is the replacement of west. We don't have phase 4 on here, which is the remodeling of north, but that's all in the process. Originally, we thought potentially these projects could live right in here, either attached to phase 2 or several of them attached to phase 2. We're not really stuck on this timeline because a lot of it could depend on if we get donors. You know, one of the key reasons that you're here is to articulate enough of a plan and enough pen to paper so we know costs, functionality, blueprints, everything, so that anybody who would be a prospective donor would have something to contribute to. You know, you guys have heard me say that before. Nobody's going to give you money without a plan, nor should they. You know, they kind of are going to require you to know what you're going to do with those dollars. And that's the focal point of making sure this work is done now, whether it ends up here or as part of phase 2 or after phase 2, really could depend on how fast donations come in. You know, we've heard a lot of things about people wanting to donate to something. This will give them the opportunity to donate to any or all of the 4 projects. So timing is variable, and it's largely going to be dependent on the voters and the donors. Any questions? All right. There you go.
We're gonna pull a little bit of an audible since we've kind of.
I'm sorry, Dave?
Yes.
Can we go back a slide?
Yeah.
So, 2.0 would be 2024.
Well, it could be, you know, if all of a sudden, you know, Bill Gates walks up and says, I'm gonna cut a check for $25 million because I just love that performing arts center, let's go.
Okay.
We can do it right now.
And the other option would be 2026 then?
If Bill Gates is out there, by the way, because this is supposed to be YouTube, we certainly would encourage you to donate.
Buffett.
Yeah, anybody, yeah.
So really what you're saying is 2 options, either 2024 or 2026, correct? I've got 2 slides here. Right?
Yeah, because one of them is just really, it's saying sometime attached to phase 2 or after, or could be potentially even before if there were donations available.
Okay, is there going to be a referendum between now and 2024?
Not unless they're planning on something and not telling us.
So really?
No, no.
The school.
No, the earliest we would be able to probably be ready to go to referendum would be 2026. You know, and when you really think about it, all the things we're sequencing in terms of building the new middle, the elementary, boundary redraws, getting things ready to go, 2026 is probably going to be the earliest where we would take a question forward to the ballot. Yeah.
And that's why we keep projecting these costs out too, because we're trying to be a bit realistic and we're not trying to show today's costs or next year's costs, and then, you know, again, 5 years from now, you're like, what the hell was he smoking, you know?
And if there was a donor for, let's say, one of the projects now, which is, you know, we had enough of a donation where it could potentially fall under a lower set of costs because it's not gonna cost as much in 2022 as it will in 2026 or thereafter, so.
Sorry, I'm not Buffett.
Well, if anybody knows Warren Buffett, just put in a good word.
Again, we're gonna pull a little bit of an audio and just push the discussion to the end, and just touch again on the site exploration. Again, I'm gonna skip through some of these. We just kind of provided some of these, again, as an overview. Again, we focused on some form of an attached building here at North. Wanted to come back with a little bit more detail on the parking. So North currently has 358 stalls in that west lot, so that would be this lot over here. Did you counted those?
Yep. I did.
We believe we're gonna lose about 15 stalls as a result of option 1.
Correct.
And then during the event, when the house is full, the entire west lot would be full and 59 stalls would be utilized to meet roughly that requirement that we're stating. So basically, we would be a little bit under the required number with just that lot.
From attendees, and does that include participants? Or-
Yeah, we're saying we're roughly about 1,250, so.
That's fully occupied
Yeah.
plus.
Got it.
So again, a little bit of the red block here, showing where we're on. Again, we kind of take out a little bit of the parking lane, so we'd have to recirculate the vehicles around that. So again, kind of an estimated loss of the parking stalls as a result of that. So again, I wanted to kind of shoehorn that in a little bit. We'll have, we'll say about 7 minutes for discussion. I guess with regard to site, I think we heard pretty loud and clear last time from our experts that the preference is that this be an attached building. I know there were some comments that I saw from the feedback of what about down the road sometime when, if we ever were to replace North, then what happens with the auditorium? So I maybe have a little bit of discussion about that. Again, I think from a programming, from a use of the facility, it really makes the most sense to be attached. And knowing, again, I think that North is, pretty far down the road in terms of, if it were ever to be replaced, I don't know what that date would be. I don't think we even projected out that far.
Not at all.
So it's probably safe to say, we're gonna get a good amount of use out of it in its current configuration, and then, again, solve for what that looks like at that time. So, again, I have a little bit about discussion about that, just so we can maybe put that to bed, that we feel comfortable with that as an attached facility. So again, about a short discussion tonight, but we'll break here. So putting a bow on this one, but as we transition, kind of final thoughts on the auditorium here.
We just talked. Nothing that I don't think needs to go before everybody.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's good.
On the storage, is there a basement underneath the stage in any of these proposals?
There's the pit, and there is storage. We are showing a storage room down in that pit area.
Okay, but I mean, would it be the entire size of the stage down one floor?
We don't show that currently. It probably is, usually it's a little more affordable to build above ground in that case, all the, confines of water and that, sometimes building down isn't always the best solution, so. I'd probably suggest we look for some options to increase upper.
Yeah, that's a very common use of the space. A lot of, especially if you have two elevators in one of them.
Right.
That stacks of chairs and stuff could be kept down there and brought up.
There's roughly 400 to 500 square feet of storage below grade.
Okay.
So half of this room, roughly, of this space. All right, that table then.
Yes and yes.
Okay, all right.
I don't know where else you put it, because I just think it's gonna be more expensive to put freestanding somewhere else, because then you gotta go acquire land. And then you got all the issues of how do you get access for students that day-to-day use, so I don't see where you'd have it somewhere other than attached to the high school. I don't see a way that would make sense for everyone.
So the only consideration then to add to that would be, what can we do now to think about what the north rebuilding would have to look like to keep this new auditorium?
So now we gotta design a new high school, all right.
Well, and/or you're planning over time, do you gobble up as houses become available to eventually expand the campus, so you have more flexibility with what to do on the total site, so you have more options there, as others have done, maybe that makes sense too, but you probably don't wait to do that until you're going to referendum, you're probably doing that well in advance.
Yeah, I mean, I drew, I don't know if you caught that, but put your realtor hat on and buy some more houses in the area was the kind of the comment. So, I mean, I think from the district's perspective, as property becomes available, I'm sure you guys are reaching out or seeking interest in it. The challenge right now, obviously, is that the real estate market's crazy. So, you know, the district, do you want the district paying premium for these houses? Or you know, when they become available. So it's tough right now, I think, to make that decision. But I think anytime a neighboring house becomes available, I know during the referendum, one of the houses by Webster, the district purchased, it was right adjacent to where we were building. So I think they're always looking for those opportunities. Our subject matter experts.
Let's do it right this time, because we'll all be gone the next time they do it. Because we didn't get it right this time on this building is 50 years old, and we didn't build a performing arts center then. Let's build one and do it right.
Ryan, you want to wrap us up then, or?
Yeah, so thank you so much again for your continued participation. You know, it's great. There's a question asked over here when we were talking about, like, how do you think all this is going? So for me, it's really important to be able to hear all of your perspectives, and it really gives a refined, you know, view. You know, subject matter experts living in the spaces every day, understanding the struggles, what works, what doesn't work, critically important for that feedback. And then to be able to get outside perspectives of people that aren't necessarily in those spaces on a regular basis, but can see it more as a community member. And then people that are doing the planning all the time, you know, when you're doing that day in, day out, week in, week out, year in, year out, like, you get blind to a lot of stuff. So this process for me is really important, just to be able to just check ourselves and our blind spots. So I just appreciate all of your participation, questions, expertise has been really valuable. So I think we've got, you know, got to a really good space to have, you know, what the scope is. If anybody knows that $50 million donor, like, you know, give us a call, stop in. And we're
more than that too. More than that.
Oh yeah, as much as possible. As much as possible.
I feel like we need like 150 million.
Yeah, well, we'll take 50 and we'll work on the rest.
I'm like doing the math. I'm like,
but as you can see, there'll need to be prioritization as we're moving forward. But I think it's important to you know, the point of, like, let's get it right. Like, let's design this thing so it's right, and then we'll be able to, you know, kind of work from there as we're moving forward. So thank you so much. We're at that 6 o'clock hour. Don't want to keep anybody anymore. So if you have any other feedback, feel free to come up and we'll share that. Otherwise, we'll see all of you next time. And thank you so much for the subject matter experts. And we'll see you guys at the end. So.